Hello, everyone. This is Ehren with MoEngage. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to log on here, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, let's go ahead and kick things off. Welcome everyone for our webinar on personalization in banking. Wherever you might be, hunkered down in your homes. Usually, I think that everybody I've been talking to lately is dealing with this. Maybe even have your kids right next to you trying to do their schoolwork. But regardless, welcome. We're gonna have a great chat today. Our guest speaker is Alyson Clarke. She's a principal analyst at Forrester, and she's going to tell us everything she needs to know about personalization in banking. So Alyson, I will let you take things away.
Perfect. Thanks, Ehren, and thank you everyone who has joined the call today. I realise it's a difficult time for all of us here globally, wherever you're calling in from. So thank you for this. Hopefully, you know, as I say, the show must go on, and you know, we'll kind of continue here and hopefully give you some great insights and information around what we're seeing in personalization and some advice for you of things that we think you should be thinking about as you try and build relationships with your clients. So again, thank you everyone. So if we think about personalization in banking, I guess one of the key things around personalization and the way I think about it is that it really does help build relationships. And just to maybe level set for a second before we kind of go into that, what do I mean when I say personalization? Well, at Forrester, the way we define personalization is we say that it's an experience that uses customer data and understanding to frame, guide, extend, and enhance interactions based on that person's history, preferences, content, and intent. Now, I recognise there's a lot to unpack in that. It's a very full definition. But I think the key things to kind of take away as we go through the session today is that we're thinking about experiences. We're not just talking about sales. And we're talking about, you know, using data and insights and things we know about the customer to, as I said, like frame, guide, extend, to really like add value to interactions and add value to customers. And so you'll see that theme come out today. Now, one of the things that I believe, and if you've heard me talk before, you may have heard me say this about personalization, is that I believe when it's done right, personalization can create a competitive advantage for your firm that can't be replicated. Now, why do I say that? Okay, so let's take a situation where maybe think about your 3 closest friends that you have in the world, and hopefully you're thinking about them a lot right now and hoping that they're safe. I guarantee that every single one of those relationships, even though they're your closest friends, is very, very different. And I bet that somebody couldn't just come in tomorrow and take your best friend away from you, right? Maybe they could when you were 8 in the schoolyard, but these days, you know, it doesn't happen. Why? Because there's so much, you know, there's so much kind of, there's such a strong relationship over the bridge. You know so much about each other. You've been there through good times and bad times with each other. You know each other so well, and you have this kind of experience and history with each other that makes it very hard for somebody to come in and steal your best friend. As I said, when you're 8, maybe that's a bit different because whoever was your best friend might have only been your best friend for a day, right? But these days, you know, it's just not the case. And personalization is kind of like the same thing, right? So, you know, if you really get close to your customers and treat them like a best friend, engaging with them and trying to understand them, asking them questions and adding value to their lives and helping them out, and they're doing the same thing for you, then it becomes a stickier relationship and it becomes differentiated. So it's a relationship like nobody else's. So another person can't just come in and replicate that, right? Because that relationship you've created, just like the one with your best friend, it's never going to be the same as someone else. It also creates loyalty, right? So that closeness in the relationship is going to, particularly if you've been adding value to them, they're going to want to stay with you. And customer engagement, it's again, the more you can do for your customers, the more you get to know them, the more they get to know you, the better you are able to deliver much more engaging moments with your customer, have a much more engaging brand. And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of financial services firms and banks, tell me that they're struggling with this differentiation right now. They're struggling with the how to be different. And I see it in our data here at Forrester. Consumers pretty much think all banks are the same, right? And so, and to be honest, in a lot of cases, they feel like they're the same, right? I go into their mobile app and try and transact, and what I can do with one bank, I can do with another. So personalization is a great way to start driving the differentiation, getting a stronger relationship with your customer and close to your customer, just like you would a best friend, and having that relationship, somebody can't just come in and steal it. They might come in with a different product or something, but they can't come. It's going to be much harder for them to actually steal that customer away from you because of the strength of the relationship. So as we think about that, I guess for personalization, I think about how do you leverage technology to build those one-to-one relationships that are unique and can't be replicated. To create those experiences with your best friend that is just between you and your best friend, right? Nobody else knows. It's unique to you, and it strengthens your bond. And that's how I think about personalization, and that's how I encourage you to think about it here as well. So, I've gone too far. 1 second, let me go back. So I think about personalization as a two-way street in a sense. Looks like I can't go back. Could you do me a favor, Ehren? Could you just go back a slide for me? I'm just having difficulties at my end.
There?
Yeah, keep going. Oh, there we are. Perfect. Yep, thank you. So personalization is like a relationship. I talked about the best friend relationship. It could be a romantic relationship, whatever it is. The other thing about relationships that makes them unique, that makes people loyal and all that lovely stuff is it has to be a two-way street, which is why I think personalization has to be thought of in this way. So both parties need to want to be in the relationship, and there needs to be value that's added on both sides, right? As soon as one party is like, well, they're not adding value to my life anymore or whatever, it's like, I'm out of there. And it can't be forced, right? Again, just like a relationship. So if we think about this two-way street, the way I like to think about personalization in this context is you should think about it as a two-way information flow between you and the customer. Now, when you don't know the customer and they're an unknown prospect, there's very little information going back and forth. Now, you might push some information out to the customer that's an offer, which they don't interact with, so you get the information. But instead, if you engage with a customer by having a conversation, maybe they're engaging in a digital tool, maybe it's like a financial health check or something like that, or some sort of mortgage calculator, guess what? There's an information flow happening, right? You're giving value to the customer is putting inputs into those tools, and you're getting information flowing back to you. And as you get that information, you get to know them a little bit better. And then as you get to know them a little bit better, you might be able to think of them in terms of a basic segmentation. And again, because you know them a little bit better, you can personalize the experience and interactions just that little bit more. And again, if you do it in the right way, so you're gathering information from the customer at the same time. So again, there's this two-way information flow. You'll soon be able to shift that relationship into what I would call a more advanced segmentation approach, and eventually a one-to-one, which is where everybody wants. It's very difficult to go from an unknown prospect to a one-to-one relationship when you don't know anything about the customer. Now, you might go away and gather all this data and buy all this data and go, I know this customer. I know that they're getting married. I know all these things about them, and then push information out. But if it's a one-way flow from you to the customer, then a lot of times you're going to offend. You may get it wrong. Data could be wrong. The modeling could be wrong. I've seen this time and time again. I've seen firms that, they're like, we know when a customer's getting married, and we can start talking about their upcoming wedding. That same firm that I, was speaking to about this told me that when they approached it, they decided, rather than going and saying, hey, we know you're getting married, or are you getting married? Instead, they started approaching it a little bit differently, like a friend, and kind of asking what was going on in their life. And guess what? The customer interacted, and they found out their model was actually only 50% accurate. So there's two things. One, they know their customers better today than they did yesterday. And secondly, they now have a better model, right, because of this information flow. So in this kind of context, it's really important that banks stop thinking like retailers. I talk to a lot of firms, a lot of banks, and a lot of their personalization spending and investments are going into some great technology, but they're only using that technology for the next best offer. In other words, what is the next product I can flog to that customer? And the problem is that banks aren't retailers, right? In financial services and banking, a customer probably only buys a financial product once, maybe every 3 to 5 years. It might even be less frequently than that, which means you're really only personalizing that interaction once every 3 to 5 years. Every other time when you're pushing those messages out, you're just annoying them. So with retailers, it's different. Like, people are buying more frequently. They're going back to the same retailer. So it's a very different proposition. And so what I think, you need to stop thinking like a retailer. You need to stop thinking like a retailer and focusing personalization efforts solely on the next best offer, the next product to put in front of that customer. Because you're not maximizing the technology, you're not leveraging the technology, and you will start to annoy your customers as opposed to create value. Instead, you should be leveraging that technology to personalize experiences for as many customers as possible across the life cycle. Success in personalization is as many customers as possible. You want to touch as many customers as possible and personalize the experience for as many customers as possible. And as I said, across the life cycle, because that's how you add value to the customer. So in that context, there's a kind of chart here that I developed just to give some sort of ideas around that. Based on some research I did and some things that we're seeing in the market. So when we think about the customer life cycle at Forrester, we start with discover, when the customer's trying to understand what do I need? Do I need a checking account? Do I need a credit card? What is it? What's my product need here? What's going on? And maybe they might be even educating themselves. So explore, it's like, okay, well, I know I need X. What firm should I choose? Who should I, how do I compare products? They've got 5 products. Which product should I choose? So we start to think about things like personalized recommendation tools and videos and personalized quotes and those sorts of things, or even personalized videos that guide customers through their options to help them understand, so there can be some education there. Then we have the buy phase, where they're actually applying for the account, and there could be personalization in terms of cross-sell and upsell. And whilst I use cross-sell and upsell, I mean it in the term of personalizing the products offered based on what you know about that customer. Because hopefully, through Discover and Explore, you've gotten to know that customer a little better. So when they come to buy, you don't just slap a cross-sell on whatever the latest offer is in front of them. You know them, so you have an understanding of what might be appropriate for them in the context of what's happening. And for some customers, it might not be anything. Then you kind of onboard the customer. We're seeing a lot of personalized onboarding, personalized messages, personalized videos when the customer's welcomed into your organization when they open their account, how to make the most out of the account and all the other benefits and what else they can get from being a customer of yours. And we go into use, where they're interacting with the product. Maybe they're talking to call center agents. Maybe they move into the ask phase and they're asking questions. And so again, we see personalization playing out by giving real-time insights to frontline employees. We have next interactions and kind of real-time insights that employees, like call center agents, are being fed on screen by what we call whisper agents, or kind of, artificial intelligence kind of chatbots that are listening to the conversation and pushing information through to them. All the way through to even engaging, where it might be adding value in terms of personalized financial tips or guidance or insights. So, helping the customer engage more with the products and services that they have with you, and helping them use them more by giving them that kind of personalized advice and insight to help them improve their financial position. So there's many, many things that can be personalized that help you get to know the customer better and will add value to the customer. And will eventually, will absolutely help you lead to the next sale, but it's about creating that differentiation, creating that relationship that can't be replicated by others. That's what it's really about. And in fact, what we find is that our leaders get closer to their customers by ensuring that personalization adds value to the customer. And they do this in a couple of ways. One is I have information to help you. The other is I can simplify things for you. I think you might need this, and I care about you. So, think about in maybe some of the things that you're doing around personalization that you might be thinking about, and see if they fit into one of these kind of frameworks, right? Does it inform the customer? Does it guide the customer? Does it simplify? Does it advise the customer? Or does it just show that you care? Because this is all great examples of best practices in personalization that help you get closer to the customer and have strong relationships. So a couple of examples for you. This is from USAA, and what USAA are doing is they're starting to actually personalize the mobile banking experience, which I love, because guess what? Almost every other bank I've seen, apart from maybe an offer that might be personalized, what's happening is the mobile banking experience is generic. If you have 1 million customers, those 1 million customers get exactly the same mobile experience as everyone else. And everybody's different. Everybody does different things. There's different things going on in their lives. And so USDA has looked at this, and depending on what they know about the customer, how the customer has interacted in data, because they're building data profiles in their customers, by the way. This is the key. You need to be building and collecting these customer profile data sets and understanding, and not just a 360-degree view within your organization about what they're doing within your firm, but behaviors and things they're doing outside of your firm, right? To really understand the context of what's happening so that you can be relevant with the guidance and the information. So in this situation, we've got two screens here. So Michael on the left, you can see under his kind of account balances there on the home page, he's got things around car selling down there and ATM locations. And clearly that's relevant to him. And what's probably happened is he's gone in to look at buying a car or auto loans on the website, or maybe he's been looking at car selling elsewhere, or maybe he picked up the phone and spoke to somebody about selling a car. So relevant information that's contextual and relevant to him was put in front of him in that mobile banking experience. Similarly, the one on the right, which is Alex, it's clear that Alex is actually perhaps making a claim. Perhaps Alex called up and indicated that a loved one had passed away, or something had happened in their life or whatever. And so what we're seeing there is information around the loss of a loved one and the claims information being pushed through to Alex. It's not just based on data. It's, in this case, something like this tends to be based on an interaction or a conversation, because it would be kind of creepy if you woke up one day and saw that on your mobile banking app and you hadn't told your bank that someone had passed away, right? So you've got to do it without being creepy. USA can also follow up on human interactions through digital touchpoints, which is another great way to personalise. This is personalisation that cuts across channels. So in this situation, Michael may have called up and there might have been a couple of things that needed to happen. Maybe he moved house or something was going on. But perhaps they didn't get to complete all of the tasks on the phone for whatever reason. Maybe Michael said, oh, yeah, I'll just sort that out later. So as a reminder, after the call, what happens is this title gets pushed through with those key items that weren't resolved on the call. So again, it's contextually relevant, and it's personalising the interactions that he's now having on the digital device in line with the context of what just happened on the phone through a human touch point. Another great example is from Barclays. In fact, many firms are doing this. We're starting to see a lot more in personalised video be adopted, and we're seeing some great use cases, particularly in Europe. I think the North American market has been slow to adopt this. I see no reason for that slowness in adoption. I think some firms have trialled it, maybe not succeeded, but I think that's more to do with execution than actual the benefit of type of interaction, or maybe it's customers it was targeted to. Like anything, this will appeal to some customers, but others won't be interested in it. And so what Barclays do is they have all this data on their customers. So they know for all of their customers, every single one on their books, how much they would lend them for a personal loan, or even, I believe, how much they would lend them for a mortgage. And that's without the customer even asking for a loan or asking for a mortgage. And so that allows them to do some really interesting things. And in this case, what they do is they can send a personalized video here out to Claire and say, hey, Claire, you know, if you've got plans, we can actually help you. And we would approve you, based on what we know about you, provisionally a £23,000 loan. And then it goes through saying you could use this for a car, you could use this for home renovations, you could use it for X and Y, a holiday. So the video talks through how Claire might use that. But what they've done is they've used information they know about Claire that's contextually relevant, and they've used that to let her know if there's things she's got planned in her life and she needs some financial help, like a loan or something, then we could help you, and here's what we would pre-approve you for. And that's all without Claire actually reaching out and saying, hey, I want a loan. And so this next example, this is an interesting one, and we're seeing a lot more of this from firms. So this is from Huntington Bank, and they have a tool called Heads Up. And Heads Up is about giving customers a heads up on upcoming activity and relevant information. So in this case, on the left-hand side, you can see one of the Heads Up messages is, hey, keep an eye on your balance because you might not cover upcoming activity. So maybe Huntington knows there's a bill coming in, and so they predict that the account's going to be overdrawn. And that's good because that gives the customer a heads up. Then they want to just move some money around or sort some things out to help allay that. And the second one there is duplicate charges, right? Maybe there's some duplicate charges for the merchant. Again, they can send that message. Now, the interesting thing about both of these and all of the heads up messages is that if there is an action, that action is linked there as well. So it's not just telling me this stuff is happening, because telling me on its own is like, well, that's great, but what do I do about it? Like, look at the duplicate charges. It says you've got duplicate charges, but if I can't do anything about it, what am I going to do? I'm going to pick up the phone, right? In this case, I can click on it. There's an arrow indicating to click, and then it talks me through what's going on, that there's duplicate charges. It lets me know. I can kind of say, yes, they are, or no, they aren't, if I recognize them. It tells me what to do if I need to call. But what I also love about this example, see, it says, how helpful was this message? So for all of these interactions, they are asking for feedback because that's going to help them continue to personalize that. Now, what might be helpful to one customer may be unhelpful to another. And so that gives you an indication of the sort of insights that each customer likes or is helpful to them, and you can personalize that experience and those messages even further. The next example, and many of you may have seen this before, it's one I do show a lot because I think it's just so powerful. It's from BBVA in Spain. So they offer personalised recommendations based on a customer's financial health. So based on what they know about the customer, and they might ask a few questions about what kind of goals they have and things like that, they will come up with a financial health score, and then they will give them advice on how to improve that score, which is great. So it's got these elements. If I go back to that framework of inform, guide, advise, care, it kind of has all four elements built into it. And of course, sometimes those goals lead to, hey, you know, we can give you a free savings account, or, you know, if you need a loan for a car. So by gathering this information from your customer and understanding what their goals are, understanding what they're saving for, that can help you then continue the conversation into perhaps an offer, a product offer for them. But instead of going straight to the product offer, instead they're trying to add value to the customer and show them how to help, how to improve their financial situation. They're adding value first and creating a rapport and a relationship first before they go in and say, hey, you know, here's a product that can help you. I talked a little bit earlier about whisper agents or chatbots, if you like, listening in on call centers, call center calls to help agents personalize interactions. And this is an example from a bank in Russia called Sberbank. And they have a bot called Anna. She's a virtual assistant, if you like, or a whisper agent or a chatbot, whatever you want to call it. She's not customer facing, she's actually employee facing. So she helps the call center agents personalize interactions. Now, I think right now she's in training, and so what she's doing is she's listening to the calls between clients and the contact center employees and figuring out how to categorize those calls. And then as she gets smarter, she'll then be able to put guidance on screen. It could be information from knowledge management tools. It could be, hey, you should ask your customer this question. It could even be, I've seen virtual assistants that do this, where they can actually listen in and they can be more attuned to the vocal intonations and the emotion that's going on with the customer. So they might actually indicate to the call center agent, this customer sounds quite stressed, or this customer is anxious, or something like that. Whilst a good agent would probably already pick that up, maybe they haven't, or in some cases, some agents might not be as good as hearing those vocal cues around emotion and even understanding what to do with it. So some really great ways, and we're seeing a lot more of this, by the way, with smarter call centers and contact centers and virtual assistants like this. One last quick one from BBVA is that, and this is actually outside the firewall, this is BBVA in Spain. You can access this, you can go onto their site and see this yourself. I'm using Google Translate to translate the English on the site here when I did the screenshots. But they help people plan for a baby, even if they're not a BBVA customer, which is amazing, right? That's a real element of care, I think. It's not completely selfish, but guess what? They now, if you have an unknown prospect engaging with this, entering information into the baby equipment or baby expenses or household budget tools, guess what? BBVA now knows more about that customer or that prospect than they did yesterday. And that enables them to start a conversation and help them figure out if there's financial products they have that might help them with that situation. If not, they've just added value with some information. And so, this is a great example of both inform, guide, advise, and care. It kind of has all four elements baked into this experience. But the key to all of this is to focus on customer outcomes. I see a lot of firms, when they think about personalization, focusing on the firm's outcomes. So they measure success. They're like, all right, we're going into personalization. Success is we sell X many more products. No. If you have really good journey analytics, and absolutely that is the end game, but you need to understand and think about what's in it for the customer right now. How do you actually add value to them? How do you build a deep relationship? And think about, yes, a product sale may absolutely be the right thing for them, but it might not be in this exact moment, but it might be down the track. And so some of the measures you think about want to be a little different as well. Now, firms that do this well, when they think about their personalization, they do adopt design thinking as a common framework to guide strategy, right? So they think about, design thinking starts with empathize, and they build empathy through a shared understanding of the customer. Now, by building that empathy of what's going on in the customer's life, so for example, USAA, their personalization efforts are built around life moments, not life events, because they figured out that life events don't happen as frequently, right? Life events don't happen maybe once every couple of years. And remember I said good personalization is touch as many customers as possible, as frequently as possible. So life events won't get you there. So they decided to look at life moments, which is things that kind of happen along the way much more frequently than a life event. And so that helps you build a shared empathy of what's going on with the customer. And then you can define the problem to solve or the value to be added to the customer and start ideating and prototyping and so forth. But you want to do this through the lens of how am I adding value to the customer? And admittedly, you want to add value to the customer and the business. But if you're only adding value to the business and not the customer, it's not a great personalization. It's not something you should necessarily go forward with. You want to be adding value to the customer in this, absolutely. So start with determining what your customers care about, right? That's the key here. Understand what you know about them. And personalization, one of the things, if you're thinking about this and this is not on your radar, it really needs to be, and that is you need to start creating dynamic profiles. You need to be building out your data set so that every individual customer, you have all of those data points and data sets so that at any time when you then start building and implementing the technology, you're ready to start using that data and context to personalize those interactions. One thing I will add here that I haven't talked about yet, just I want to mention it briefly, and that is you do also need to learn about customers' privacy and brand expectations, because some customers may be fine with you saying, hey, are you getting married? And others are going to be offended by it. some may be okay with you deepening that relationship and that information flow. If you think about that, getting to know the customer better, and others may not. So you've got to be clear to have kind of opt-outs along the way. I mean, if you go back and have a look at those USAA slides, if you get a chance later, those images, they have a very clear, in some circumstances, kind of this yes, no, ignore thing, which makes it much easier for customers to kind of opt out of things that are going on. But at the end of the day, just to kind of wrap up before I hand back to Ehren, I think personalization can really strengthen your relationships with customers. They can create a unique relationship that somebody can't just come in and replicate. They might come in with a better product or a better price or something like that, but it's going to be hard to steal that customer away if that relationship is strong and they see value in that relationship. They're going to be much more forgiving of you in terms of price and servicing and a whole bunch of stuff as well. We've seen that time and time again. But to do this right, one, you have to ensure personalization adds value to the customer. Two, you should think about personalizing experiences at each stage of the customer life cycle. You should look at providing one-to-one experiences across all touch points and not just digital, but think about human interactions as well. Focus on moments that meet those kind of four categories I talked about: inform, guide, advise, and or care. Like one of those or a combination of those, or even all of those. And then lastly, adopt design thinking to really guide your personalization strategy, because I think it will set you up for success, particularly if you get the first part of that right, which is empathy for the customer and how it's going to add value to the customer. All right, thank you everyone. So with that, I'm going to head to Ehren to talk us through a few more things, and I think we're going to open up questions, right, Ehren?
Yeah, we are. So thank you, Alyson. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that as you reflect on Alyson's presentation, certainly feel free to enter in any questions you have now or close to the end of the webinar into GoToWebinar, and we'll certainly get to those questions here in about 10-15 minutes, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. So I guess for me to pick up where Alyson left off, originally, quite honestly, late last week, the presentation that I was going to give, at least at this part, was much different. And I think with all the things that have happened recently with coronavirus and all the changes that all of us are making on our daily lives, I think this slide was pretty accurate. Now, old banking is dead. It's a little dramatic, but I think in the moment today, right now, there aren't people lined up at a bank, right? People aren't congregating at banks. They're not showing up at branches. And I think that's something right now to really put things into perspective about, where the future is headed, but also, even if you just think about what's happening today in the moment, right? So when you have that situation, mobile banking is the way to go, right? And many of the slides that Alyson showed were certainly, we're talking about mobile as that digital touch point, that digital point of relationship with your bank or with your financial institution. And I think today more than ever, it's very, very important. So as you think about, her model, Alyson's model, I think one of the things that's very, very clear is that being able to alert users, right? Not only within the app, as many of her examples showed, but also to be able to deliver meaningful communications is going to be very important. Now, this is what MoEngage does as a company, right? We're a customer communication platform and we're full stack. So essentially we provide as a solution the analysis of how users are interacting. We provide that unified dynamic customer profile that takes all the feeds from your core banking systems and other systems into a single user interface that allows your business teams to create logic to alert users in different ways. So in these examples, right, it could be, hey, you had an incoming wire that just came in, or hey, your balance is getting low, maybe you should transfer some money, right? Using the messaging power of mobile through SMS, email, in-app messages, web push, mobile push, to really inform your users, drive them back into your mobile experience, and get them to engage and see value out of what you've built. So as a company, this is what we help banks do. The big thing that we see, right, is there are all these trends in all these areas, right? Bill payments, credit cards, investments, loans, checking and saving, mobile payments. All of these needs communication with the end user, right? Now, Alyson talked about getting feedback, right? It's a two-way street. So it's not just about being able to send out notifications, alerts, messaging, content to users in these different contexts of their interactions with you, but also being able to get information back about, okay, well, hey, I just, as an example, right, I just get an SMS that says, hey, your balance is low, would you like to transfer, yes or no? And if you answer yes, it says, well, how much? $100. And being able to kind of create those communication dialogue, or that dialogue between you and the customer, is really going to help with your loyalty. And it's also going to help just improve brand affinity. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're able to really communicate with your customer on a channel that they prefer, you're going to see just a ton of lift when it comes to customer engagement. So right now, this concept that Alyson talked about of care is more important than ever. And I wanted to share something right now that's very timely. It's something I think that everybody on this webinar can go afterwards and take to their various marketing departments or product teams and figure out what to do with. But I can tell you right now, in Asia, and we deal a lot with companies in APAC, they are taking their ability or their channels of communication with their end users, and they're applying that care framework. They're telling them things like, hey, you should clean your phone to stay safe, right? You should, in this third example here, like, hey, we're gonna give you a food delivery notice when the food is at your doorstep, so you don't have to interact with the driver and potentially have close human contact, right? They're taking this concept of care and thinking about what their customers need and sending them relevant messages that really add value to their lives and, quite honestly, keep them safer. And with these simple examples, being able to message, you guys can take these right now today and go out and apply these to your business. I can assure you that there are very few companies doing this right now that are telling their customers through these engagement channels how to stay safe and what they can do to protect themselves. And if you even take things a step further, think about the message for somebody who's over 60 versus somebody who's a new customer who's young. So also think about those different segments of your customers, whether it be for age or even geolocation, right? And being able to message them based on what you know about them. So make it not only relevant, but also timely. And at the end of the day, again, it shows that you care. So with that said, again, happy to answer any questions. That's all I have. But certainly, Alyson, thank you for your input. I will just say that if anybody has any questions for me, this is my information about how you could launch a campaign like I just showed using your existing tools. I'm more than happy to help or get our CSM team on the phone and kind of walk you through, like, hey, this is how you would pull off a video push that might inform your users how to clean their phones, or a reminder on washing hands, or what have you. So with that said, I'll open it up to questions, and thank you very much. All right, just seeing some questions roll in here. Okay, Alyson, I guess first question, how do, see if I can translate here what I'm reading. One of the things that I hear a lot is people are like, hey, I buy into this idea of having this unified customer profile, but all my customer data is sitting on these legacy systems. Are you advising clients on how to get that data out in a way that they can use it or make it usable? Because I hear from a lot of folks that challenge of getting that data out into a usable format is real.
Yeah, and that's something that has to be a priority. If you're a financial services firm right now and you can't get access to your own data because it's buried in systems and it's not usable, we're going to go out of business very quickly, I'll tell you that, because this is the future, right? This is not just me now talking about personalization. This is the future of banking, right? Data and being able to use that data for AI purposes and personalization and all that lovely stuff. You have to be a data-driven organisation. Now, I'm not a technology expert in terms of the technical aspects of how to do that. We certainly have experts that can help you with that, and I'm sure MoEngage can have those conversations with you as well. But this is something that should be a priority. Now, that being said, let's just say you're like, well, I can't do personalization because I don't have any of that. Well, actually, you can. There's nothing to stop you starting to do things now. Work with what you have, right? figure out whether what you have and what you can do will add value to the customer, and then test and learn. That's why design thinking is important. So don't let not having access to that stop you from doing things, but keep championing internally, because it should be a priority for your firm. It's increasingly important. But as I said, don't let it stop you from thinking about personalization and what you can do now. There are many things that can be done around personalization that don't require you to access, all those different data points that are buried in your system.
Yeah, got it. Hey, can you give an example of an area within personalization where you feel like there's kind of untapped opportunity? I mean, I know you shared some examples already, but is there anything you see either a small group doing that you think everybody else should be doing that they're just not, or there's some opportunity that we should be thinking about for the next, again, for the next year?
Yeah, I think, and this was prevalent 2 months ago before we entered this kind of crazy world that we're now in, and potential recession that we're in or going into. And that is, think about the Huntington Bank example. Think about those examples with giving personalised insights and guidance, helping people do better with their money, or just manage the day-to-day a little better. Those things. That is actually now, to be honest, in consumers' eyes, it's becoming table stakes. All the disruptors were doing it, all the new digital banks. Now we have the large banks kind of starting to go down this path as well. And if this is not on your radar, it should be. Is this amazing, innovative, that's going to maybe completely transform things for you and your customers? Not necessarily, but you have to have it because it's keeping up with the pack. Just like over the last 2 years, if you didn't have Zelle, you were like behind the game and you needed to bring in Zelle to keep up with the pack. You need to be thinking about those personalized insights and guidance tools that will keep you up with the pack. So that's the first thing I would kind of say. And again, think about it. Going into tougher economic times, people want all the help that they can get, right? Similarly, there are things you can start to think about with financial advice or guidance tools or financial health checks. BBVA's got a great one. USAA has a great financial readiness tool. They're the sort of things that really will, I think, make a difference, particularly with millennials and people that haven't been through a very, very tough, they may have been through a recession, but they were probably too young to kind of, have enough in their bank account to really worry about it. And these days they do. So this is a whole new world for them, and they're going to be looking for this sort of stuff. So I think that is a real opportunity. And then one of the easier ones I'll talk about is personalized video. Like, I cannot believe how little it is used in the US and Canada, because the way this stuff works and the value that it can add from an educational perspective, even just understanding my statement. Let's just say I was a wealth management firm and my whole portfolio has disappeared, or I'm a bank and my robo-advice product. Let's just say my account's gone down. And I get a statement, I'm looking at stuff online and I'm panicking. A personalized video talking about what's going on and personalizing it with information that's relevant to the customer and their data of their statement can be really, really helpful, and it create an emotional engagement and a personalized engagement. So to me, they're really the things that stick out as the opportunities. As I said, some of it's table stakes, though, or is increasingly becoming table stakes in terms of those personalized insights and guidance, like the Huntington example I showed, or like the sort of things you were showing, Ehren, with some of those mobile messages and things.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Well, here's a question that I have, because I talk to financial institutions quite a bit, and they look at messaging or improving their app experience, and sometimes it kind of becomes this warm and fuzzy conversation. Like we know that it's good, we know it's better, but then leadership's like, where's the ROI? So I guess, how are you advising clients when they come to you and say, hey, we know all this stuff is quote unquote good, or we should be doing this, but how do we actually justify the spend and resources required to pull it off? So can you talk a little bit about that?
So this goes into the old way of doing innovation and the new way of doing innovation. The old way of doing innovation is you needed to prove everything to the nth degree, and you needed a rock solid cost-benefit analysis before anybody would give you any money to do anything. If you're still thinking that way in your organisation, you need to shift that fast. Again, if you don't, you're going to go out of business. The new way is about design thinking and iterative design, right? It's about piloting stuff, trying something. So it's about, some firms that I have seen, there's a couple of ways. What they've done is they've identified like maybe this really cool thing that they could do on the smell of an oily rag, as we say in Australia. I don't know if that translates to in American, but basically on very little money, they're like, right, there's something we can do. We think it's going to add value. Let's just build it and test it and see what it does. And it's not that they roll out to everyone at once, they test it, right? And that's what proves the ROI case. That's what then allows them to go back and get more money. Prime example, and this came out in an interview for my research last year on personalization with USAA, this is what they did. They tested some stuff. They got some traction. They went back, and now personalization is, so I've been told, in the business plans of everybody across the entire organization, and there's money being put behind it. So you have to start. So it's no longer build the business case, get the money. It is, it's kind of test, learn, try something, prove the case, and then show them that it works. Or at least go in and talk about what others are doing and talk about how you're behind what others are doing and get permission to experiment to prove the ROI with your customers. That would be my advice.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, and one of our customers actually, and now that you mention that, it reminds me, one of our customers actually mentioned that was one of their key reasons for deploying our platform was speed in experimentation, because when you've got a bunch of different things that are wired together, it becomes hard to do. And of course, at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to work. So you've got to try stuff. You got to do it quickly, and you got to measure the results, and then you've got to iterate and go from there. So, certainly makes sense.
What works for one company may not work for you, right? So sometimes this comes down to execution. As I said, I've seen firms launch personalized video and it doesn't work. And others, it's a major success. And the ones where it doesn't work, like it doesn't work, we're not doing it anymore. And it's the execution. It's how they've gone about it. It's perhaps who they've targeted, how they've delivered the message. I would say the same thing potentially with like the insights and guidance. Some firms will try the proactive insights and guidance, and the way they execute it or the way they roll it out might, completely bomb out and customers aren't interacting or don't see any value in it. Instead of putting up your hands and going, this thing doesn't work, and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you have to try and figure out why it's not working and start changing the way you execute and testing some of that stuff. That's why testing and iterating is important, so that you don't build the white elephants, right? And it's important because it means it's giving you that green light as you keep going, and you're not going to build the white elephant that no one's using, because you're kind of building it with customers and iterating it as you go. I think that's an important thing as well, because as I said, I've seen people, I've seen half a dozen firms do the same, what they think other firms are doing and copy them, and then they're like, oh, it doesn't work for us. It's like, maybe the clients are different, maybe the way you execute is different. There's a whole bunch of things that you need to refine for your organization and your customers.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like there's a big cultural shift too that has to happen, which I see that happening, but I mean, it's not everywhere yet, but certainly there's just company culture, right? I mean, it's tough to break the mold of years of habit and branch into new ways of thinking. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a whole webinar in itself, culture. there's a lot to unpack with that one. But,
yeah, no doubt. We'll save that for another webinar.
Definitely.
Yeah, Alyson, do you have any kind of parting thoughts here as we close down the webinar?
I guess it just comes back to some of the comments I made. Perhaps this will answer the questions here, really, and some of them. One is that, remember, personalization should be on the customer's terms and add value to them. And if it's not adding value to them, it's just adding value to you, as in, we get sales up, then you're really not personalizing, and it's not going to be a great experience for the customer. And the second thing is just start, right? If you're not doing anything in this space now, or all you're doing is focusing on sales, and you want to shift that and try something different, then get out there, start, test, learn, iterate. Don't wait for some big behemoth project or some big kind of data project to fix all your data profiles to be able to do that. You can start now. You want to keep planting the seeds for the other stuff, but you can start building momentum by testing and learning now.
Yeah, great. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody for attending wherever you are. Stay safe out there, and certainly have a good rest of the week, and our paths may cross in the future. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Alyson. Yeah.